The council chamber of Draxus Prime had never been so silent. Ambassador, Felxith's crystalline appendages trembled as she witnessed what no sentient being in the known galaxy had dared attempt in 3,000 cycles. A human child, no more than 6 solar years old, with bright yellow hair tied in what humans called pigtails, stood face to face with Scar-Wrath the Eternal, supreme commander of the Draconian Imperium and the single most feared creature in civilized space. The child's name was Emma Rodriguez, daughter of the human diplomatic envoy to the Galactic Coalition. She had somehow wandered away from the delegation quarters during the emergency session convened to discuss the Draconian threat. Scar-Wrath towered above the assembly floor, his obsidian scales gleaming under the chamber's luminescent panels. Each scale was said to be harder than neutronium, forged in the heart of a dying star during his species' ancient evolution. His wings, folded against his massive frame, could eclipse small moons, eyes like molten gold fixed upon the tiny creature before him with an intensity that had made entire star systems surrender without firing a single shot. The Draconians were apex predators, engineered by nature and enhanced by their own brutal culture into perfect killing machines. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They certainly did not tolerate disrespect, and yet this child had walked right up to their supreme leader. Someone stop her, hissed Trade Minister Corlox, his 6 eyes wide with terror, but no one moved. The Draconian Honor Guard, each warrior standing 3 meters tall in powered armor, had their weapons trained on the crowd, not the child. Any sudden movement would trigger a massacre. Ambassador Chen, Emma's father, stood frozen at his delegation podium, his face drained of all color. His hands gripped the edge so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. He wanted to scream, to run to his daughter, but he knew that any outburst would doom them all. Scar-Wrath lowered his enormous head until his snout, lined with teeth the size of human forearms, was level with the small girl. Each breath from his nostrils created a wind that ruffled Emma's dress and sent her pigtails dancing. The temperature around him increased noticeably. Draconians were thermoregulated fusion reactors, their bodies burning at temperatures that would vaporize most organic life. The child should have been terrified. Every instinct, every survival mechanism bred into sentient species over millions of years, should have been screaming at her to run. The pheromones alone that Scar-Wrath emitted were designed to trigger primal fear responses in potential prey. But Emma simply tilted her head, studying the dragon with curious brown eyes. "You have a boo-boo," she said, her voice impossibly small in the vast chamber yet carrying clearly in the absolute silence. Scar-Wrath's eyes narrowed. Along the ridge of his left nostril was indeed a scar, an ancient wound from a battle that had claimed 17 warships and 2 planets. It was a mark of honor among his kind, a testament to his invincibility. No Draconian had ever dared mention it. The dragon's rumble started deep in his chest, a sound that registered on seismic sensors across the station. It was the precursor to dragonfire, the plasma breath that had turned entire fleets into expanding clouds of ionized particles. The assembly held its collective breath. This was how humanity would end its brief venture into galactic politics, reduced to constituent atoms because a child had wandered into the wrong room. But then Emma did something that would be replayed across every civilized world for generations to come. She stepped forward, rose onto her tiptoes, and gently pressed her lips against Scar-Wrath's scarred nostril. "There," she said, stepping back with a satisfied smile. "My mama says kisses make boo-boos better." For exactly 4.7 seconds, the Coalition's recording systems would verify this later. Nothing happened. The universe seemed to pause, waiting for reality to reassert itself, for the natural order to be restored through fire and destruction. Then Scar-Wrath the Eternal, Scourge of the Outer Rim, Breaker of Worlds, did something that no one had ever recorded in the entire history of his species. He blinked, his massive head tilted, mirroring Emma's earlier gesture. The rumbling in his chest didn't stop, but it changed, shifted into a different frequency. The Draconian Guard's postures shifted from aggressive readiness to what xenopsychologists would later identify as complete confusion. "You are not afraid," Scar-Wrath said, his voice like continents grinding together. Each word was carefully enunciated in perfect galactic standard, though it clearly took effort to form sounds with a mouth designed for tearing and burning rather than speaking. "Why would I be scared? Emma asked, genuine puzzlement on her face. You're just a big lizard. Like my friend Sophie's iguana, but way, way bigger and with wings. That's so cool. Can you fly? What's your name? Do you like cookies? I have cookies. She reached into the pocket of her dress and produced a slightly crushed chocolate chip cookie, offering it up to the dragon with both hands. The absurdity of the moment finally broke Ambassador Velksith's paralysis. Supreme Commander, she interjected carefully. The child means no disrespect. Her species has a peculiar lack of silence. Scarrath's command wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority. His gaze never left Emma. Slowly, with a precision that seemed impossible for a creature his size, he extended his tongue, a ribbon of bioluminescent tissue that glowed with barely contained plasma, and delicately took the cookie from her hands. It vaporized instantly upon contact. Oh. Emma's eyes went wide. You're really hot. Like lava hot. I am thermonuclear, Scarrath confirmed, a note of what might have been amusement entering his terrible voice. Most beings recognize this as a threat display. You see it as cool? Super cool. We learned about fusion in school. Miss Andrea said stars do fusion. Are you like a star? That's amazing. For the first time in 3,000 years of recorded history, a draconian made a sound that wasn't a roar, growl, or threat. It was brief, barely a second, but every recording device in the chamber caught it. Scarrath the Eternal had laughed. The Supreme Commander straightened to his full height, his wings unfurling partially in what draconian specialists would later identify as a gesture of respect. Human child Emma, he pronounced formally, you have performed a healing ritual upon a battle scar granted to me by the Hive Empress herself in the siege of Calderon. No warrior has shown me such kindness in 500 cycles. He turned to address the assembly, his voice returning to its usual commanding thunder. I came here today to demand tribute, territory, and submission from the coalition. I came expecting either cowardice or futile resistance, as is typical of the younger species. His golden eyes swept across the terrified delegates. Instead, I find a race whose children possess no fear of death, who see wonder where others see destruction, and who offer cookies to dragons. Scarrath's gaze returned to Emma, who was now waving enthusiastically at him. The Draconian Imperium will not make war upon humanity, he declared. Any species that produces offspring this magnificently insane is either too dangerous to fight or too interesting to destroy. I have not yet determined which. He lowered his head once more to Emma's level. Little healer, when you are grown, if you wish to travel the stars, find me. The Imperium could use someone who kisses dragons. With that, Scarrath and his guards departed, leaving a chamber full of stunned diplomats and one very happy little girl, who was already asking her father if they could get a dragon for a pet. Ambassador Chen, finally able to breathe again, knelt down and hugged his daughter tightly. Over her shoulder, he caught Ambassador Velksith's compound eyes, which were whirling in the crystalline equivalent of stunned disbelief. Ambassador Chen, Velksith said slowly, I have studied humanity for 17 cycles. I thought I understood your species' capacity for the unexpected. I was wrong. What do you call this ability your child possesses? Chen looked at his daughter, who was now explaining to the Galactic Secretary General that dragons definitely needed cookies because everyone needed cookies, and smiled wearily. We call it innocence, he said, and apparently, it's humanity's most terrifying weapon.